we have just faced one of the greatest tests for humanity. As the pandemic spread across the globe, the world transformed, and so did we. We proved to be adaptable, resilient, and sustainable, with renewed confidence to tackle tomorrow's challenges.
Product shortages,
global warming,
and inflation. The COVID catastrophe is uniquely unequal.
Climate change, supply chain disruptions, and the resulting economic impact will significantly affect our lives, our communities, and the way we do business. To meet these challenges, we need to build new ecosystems and partnerships. We must invest in sustainable innovation. Today, the 2021 TCS Innovation Forum provides a unique platform to challenge ourselves, collaborate with ecosystem partners, and share collective knowledge. Sustainability, technology, and innovation are at the core of each discussion, as inspirational speakers share insights on how to redefine business and have a positive impact on the world around you. TCS is committed to improve environmental and socioeconomic impact. We are reducing 70% of our emissions by 2025 and aim to be net zero by 2030. We are building a hybrid workforce, integrating a global talent cloud to provide the best skills to customers and the best experiences to employees.
We have a unique opportunity today to combine a purpose-driven worldview with digital technologies and an ecosystem of TCS research and innovation, our business, our customers, and our partners to build a sustainable future for all of us.
The 2021 Innovation Forum brings us together to co-create a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient future. Welcome to the TCS Innovation Forum 2021.
Hello, 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 and a very warm welcome to the 2021 TCS Innovation Forum in North America. My name is Spencer Kelly. I'm your host. Wherever you are right now, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for dropping by. I hope you're all doing okay. We are still in strange times, aren't we? Different countries are at different stages in this pandemic. Still a lot of uncertainty around. I've worked with TCS for a few years now. I love them to bits. So I just want to say on a personal note up front that they've all been in my mind over the past few months. India was absolutely ravaged by this thing. And I know that TCS and their families have all been affected by it. So to the team, my heart goes out to you. Before we kick off today, just a quick reminder that this session will be available to view online on demand shortly after we finish. Should you wish to watch something back, should your connection drop out, or should the doorbell go? Don't think I've got any deliveries booked for today, but you never know. The new hazards of working from home, eh? And it will be worth watching again because we've got loads of fascinating content across loads of topics and a whole spectrum of business sectors. We are going to gather together business, technology, and innovation leaders to share their perspectives and insights on how enterprises around the world are harnessing technology and the power of ecosystems to build more sustainable futures for all. The event's global theme is Building Sustainable Futures. Now, this is about how organizations can leverage technology and innovation to help solve some of the greatest threats to our climate, communities, and commerce. And during this North American session, we'll focus on how companies can accelerate innovation for a better tomorrow across industries. So before we begin, let's take a quick look at this virtual event platform that we're all in. I've been living in this for about 2 years now, it feels like. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a row of widget icons. Now, these control the various windows, which are resizable and movable by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. So feel free to move them around and get the most out of your desktop. How many screens are you using today? I'm using 2. I bet you can beat that, some of you. For a better experience during the panel discussion, you might want to maximize the video window to full screen. And we'll be answering some of your questions as part of the Q&A session. So please please do use the Q&A box below to submit your questions. You don't need to wait until the end of each presentation to submit your questions. Fire them off as you think of them. There are also some assets related to the event which you can download from the Content Hub. And also we have a survey which we'd love you to fill in. You can do this at any time during the event. Maybe pick a moment when you think it's all going really well. Because on that topic, let's not forget, online conferences rarely go without a hitch. If your screen freezes, you can usually fix things just by refreshing your browser page. If my screen freezes, we're all in trouble. But no, we do have a backup plan for that, and his name is Jeff. So if you see Jeff, you know something bad's happened. You can also use the Q&A box to post any login or tech-related issues, and our support team would do their best to try and resolve them. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, TCS North America Chairman, Suri Kant. Now, Suri's career has spanned more than 35 years, and he has made a monumental contribution to the global software industry and Tata Consultancy Services. As TCS's chairman for North America, Suri oversees their largest market, driving business growth and strengthening customer relationships. He is an advocate of STEM education and leads TCS's efforts across North America to support communities and help prepare the next generation of talent with the foundations of computer science skills that are needed for 21st century careers. He's won awards for leadership development, diversity, equity, inclusion, and corporate social responsibility. He established the Indian software industry in Japan in the 80s, led UK operations in the 90s, has been president of North America, UK, and Europe, and earlier this month, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce gave him the 2021 Corporate Leader of the Year award. In short, he's great. Over to you, Suri.
Welcome to TCS Innovation Forum North America. We're so excited to have you join us today. Over the past 15 years, TCS Innovation Forum has attracted customers, partners, technology watchers, and thought leaders with a common passion for learning how trends, challenges, and technologies affect business and industries. This year, we are gathering to explore the most pressing mandate of our lives, how to build sustainable futures. Needless to say, sustainability is vitally important to our businesses, our well-being, and our very existence. It is elemental to our survival and our prosperity. Today, we are going to be covering a lot of ground, not only how organizations will help tackle threats to the planet, but also the implications for local communities and, of course, their business. But first, I would like to share some highlights of TCS business over the past year. I'm pleased to report that in our most recent fiscal year, which ended on March 31st, 2021, TCS generated consolidated revenues of $22.2 billion. In our most recent earning announcement for the quarter which ended on September 30th, TCS revenues were $6.3 billion, up 16.8% year on year. All of TCS's major markets showed strong growth, led by North America, which grew by 17.4%. Our employee population grew to more than 528,000, which includes over 40,000 North American associates. Just as important, TCS continued to make great strides in underscoring its commitment to local communities and building its brand. I'll give you some examples. Brand Finance reaffirmed TCS as one of the top 3 IT services brands worldwide, with an increase in brand value of $1.4 billion over 2020, the highest absolute growth of 25 companies assessed. For the second straight year, TCS was named by Fortune magazine as one of the best big companies to work for, ranking us 17th. We reaffirmed our commitment to American Red Cross, supporting recovery and rehabilitation efforts for disasters such as Hurricane Ida. We renewed our sponsorship of the TCS New York City Marathon through 2029, including support for youth, community, and teacher programs. For the 5th straight year, TCS was named to the Civic 50 as one of the 50 most community-minded companies in America by points of light. Our Ignite My Future in School STEM education program surpassed its 5-year goal of reaching 1 million US K-12 students. And most recently, TCS was among the top 20 companies on the Future Brand Index 2021, jumping 45 places from last year. The Future Brand Index 2021 is particularly telling because it ranks companies based on how strongly their brands are perceived, not their financial strength. The study concluded that the brands thriving today and going forward will be the ones that prioritize innovation, positively impact individual well-being, and drive change for good at scale. It also stated that there is significant opportunities for companies that create platforms and infrastructures on which human life can thrive in our increasingly uncertain future. I can't think of a better segue to the theme of today's Innovation Forum, building sustainable futures. You see, today's organizations are defined by their purpose, and being a purpose-led company is key to being successful and ensuring a sustainable future. Well before pandemic, consumers were showing that they wanted to do business with brands that share the beliefs and values. Yet being driven by purpose applies equally to B2B companies too. While the pandemic reinvigorated the boardroom discussions about purpose, more and more organizations are reflecting not just on financial goals, but their role in the world and even the overall purpose of their existence. For brands, the implications are far-reaching. How do they achieve sustainable and inclusive economic growth? What is their environmental impact on the planet? What can they do to improve the health of people in their community? How can they make the future brighter for future generations? What is their role in helping to achieve social and economic justice? Of course, these are very thought-provoking and complicated questions for any company to answer. Being a purpose-led business is much more than coming up with a catchy tagline. It must be backed by action and progress, and therefore must be baked into every aspect of your operating model. And no single organization can go it alone either. A holistic approach is needed. That's because when it comes to sustainability, the challenges for the planet, the prosperity of your business, and the effects on the people in your community are deeply interconnected. We are all in this together. Companies that ignore that reality not only face risks to their brand and reputation, without a doubt, their growth, their profitability, and ability to innovate will also be impacted. TCS stands ready to help you accelerate innovation for a better tomorrow. Whether it is through our Spaceport Innovation Centers in New York and soon Pittsburgh and Toronto, or our co-innovation network that convenes startups, academia, and technology partners, we have the necessary innovation system to power your transformation. I would like to thank every customer for being with us today. We value our relationship, ladies and gentlemen, and look forward to helping you create a more meaningful and sustainable future. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Suri. Great way to kick off the event. And here's a really key point then that we want you to take away today. Sustainability is really much more than climate change. It affects the planet, but it's also about how businesses and people in communities will cope and prosper in the future. So now it's time for our first poll question. This is going to be shown in the slide area. So please make sure your slide area is open. Make your choice and submit your response. Here's the question. As you focus more on your sustainability strategy, what do you perceive as the biggest challenge? Having a common understanding of what sustainability means for your organization, figuring out how sustainability affects your industry, developing a holistic sustainability strategy across business units and ecosystems, or securing funding for a transformative sustainability roadmap. If you could just select the one that most closely represents your view, submit it, and we'll bring you the results of our polls a little bit later. And don't forget that if you have any questions or comments on what you hear today, please do type them into the Q&A box. We will get to them a little bit later. So next is our Innovation Forum keynote from K. Ananth Krishnan, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of TCS. Ananth directs research, innovation, and co-innovation at TCS. And since 1999, under his leadership, TCS has created a huge range of new products and services with a wide IP portfolio. He's devised an agile model for innovation at scale across the entire organization. He's served on several governing councils of academia, industry advisory bodies, and government and alumni committees. In recognition of his contributions to engineering, he was made a Fellow of the Indian Academy of Engineering in 2013. He was named a Distinguished Alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi in 2009. And he's been listed in Computerworld's Premier 100 IT Leaders and in InfoWorld's Top 25 CTOs. He's a physicist, a computer scientist, and an all-round powerhouse. In short, he's also great. Over to you, Ananth.
My personal welcome to all of you at the TCS Innovation Forum 2021. In the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to give you a picture of what is it that we are doing in TCS Research and Innovation, where are we headed, and most importantly, how will this make a difference to TCS, to you as an important stakeholder. Let me start with the way in which we are articulating our brand identity to the external world. This is TCS's 40th year as a research-led, innovation-led organization. The important aspect that the purpose statement of TCS now says, building greater futures through innovation and collective knowledge, says it all. TCS Research as a brand is about inspirational inventions, and TCS Pace, which is the way in which we articulate our innovation story, is about making that intellectual content real, tangible, experiential, and indeed done at extremely rapid cycles. So to summarize, TCS Research and Innovation consists of our ability to invent, which is TCS Research predominantly, but it is also our academic ecosystem. Today, the academic ecosystem is across more than 100 partners in different parts of the world. TCS Research has labs, again, globally, and these are measured on intellectual metrics, patents, publications, journals, conferences, and the quality of ideas and work that we are doing. TCS Co-Innovation Network is more than just the academic network. It includes our startup partners, it includes our strategic alliance partners, and indeed it is including our customers as well. This intellectual horsepower from inside the company and our ecosystem is the third leg of the stool, which is the innovation agenda, which is about leveraging that twin engine strategy, the great ideas from inside and outside, into tangible new products, new services for ourselves, our partners, our customers, and society at large. Now let me give you a feel for what is it that we are actually working on. From the perspective of the digital exponentials table that some of you might remember from the last 3 or 4 innovation forums, we try to look at the landscape of possibilities along various lenses, not just technologies, but the way in which those technologies aggregate into domains, the business strategies and drivers that these must respect, and societal and human needs that must influence every single choice that we make to pick a particular candidate from one part of the digital exponential stable, combine it ideally with some other part of the digital exponential stable, and produce the outcomes that are meaningful to some stakeholder. Let me give you one example of a technology, which is, let's say, cognitive robotics, which is combined with autonomous logistics in an ecosystem manner, which fulfills human needs of increasing home delivery of packages as opposed to traditional postal services. This example, which I'll illustrate through a short video, is coming to life in Europe with the help of TCS Research and Innovation, our partner ecosystem, and, as I said, an anchor customer. This is the art of the possible in the future. It looks basic today, but as it scales and grows, it will become real in many, many industries. So this kind of intersection of concerns and producing tangible results is an example of what and how we think. Moving on to yet another tool that I have introduced to this audience in years past, the famous clay map, named after and in memory of the late Professor Clayton Christensen, who had first articulated this concept in his works nearly 20 years ago. He called it the technology market map. Today, the clay map gives us a clear picture of how to construct a diverse innovation agenda based on the vast number of choices that the digital exponentials could throw up. How do you pick the ones that are meaningful to a given company, a given industry, a given societal focus? The 4 quadrants give you that portfolio management framework. The bottom right quadrant is your here and now concerns, things that you must do to stay competitive. If you don't do those well, you don't survive in whatever endeavor you're trying to do. The top right quadrant are things that you must worry about because these are things that you already do, but the way you do it, the technologies that you apply or the business capabilities that you apply might be very different a year from now, 2 years from now in the near horizon. If you don't do that, you may not survive that technical or business model disruption, but still serving the same market. The left side of the clay map is all about anticipating the jobs that your customers will ask you to do in the future. Some of those jobs you may be able to fulfill with your existing capabilities, which is the bottom left quadrant. And some of the jobs which are futuristic might require completely futuristic capabilities from you. That's the blue sky quadrant on the top left. So if you now start plotting the ideas that you have from your own sources, from your ecosystem, from your research and innovation, from TCS's research and innovation, you see the power of the tool, which essentially gives you these 4 different types of futures that you might like to prepare for. From a TCS perspective, those 4 futures are the adaptive enterprise on the bottom right, which is all about the usual suspects. We worry about them all the time, whether it's cloud, whether it's data, whether it's cybersecurity, ways of writing code. those are the kind of challenges that we have to prepare for anyway. If AI is going to write code or remediate the software development lifecycle, you have to be prepared for it. If there are better ways of implementing cybersecurity or the multi-cloud, you have to be prepared for that anyway. The top right quadrant is where exciting things start happening, because this is about doing things that you may be already doing, but do them in a paradigm which is completely different from the way you're doing them today. And this is the quadrant which we call the human plus machine, or the emerging technology quadrant. Let me give you a real life example, which brings to life some of the concepts that I described earlier. The video that you're going to see is a great example of a challenge which has originated in Japan, the Anna X Prize, as it is called. It's being addressed by a large number of very innovative teams across the world. The X Prize has that cachet. TCS, the Indian Institute of Science, India's premier academic institution, and Hanson Robotics, the company which makes the famous Sophia robot, have come together, and we have created this very exciting capability which brings our respective strengths together to address a very real challenge of human-machine interaction in the context of aging people at home. Take a look.
Asha?
Please hold out your hand. And you do not have a paper anymore. Would you like any assistance?
I could do with a glass of water.
Okay, so let me get that for you. Here you go.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear a joke?
Sure. Please tell me.
What do you call a room without any walls?
I don't know. What is it?
Mushroom.
Asha is laughing.
Familiar.
All right.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Coming to the left side of the quadrant, the bottom left, the clay map, is what we call the connected ecosystems story. Now, this could take many shapes. It could be about data ecosystems with the marketplace, the Dexam data marketplace that we have launched. It could be API-driven ecosystems. It could be many, many different things enabled by blockchain technologies, by 5G, and so on and so forth. And you'll hear about this in different sessions of the Innovation Forum today and into the future. These are technologies which already exist or are reasonably mature, but their business model of deployment is what we have to work on. And the top left quadrant are about futuristic technologies addressing perhaps needs which are yet to be clearly articulated or even known. Sustainability is a challenge that all of us will be grappling with over the next decades, and indeed it's a theme of the Innovation Forum this year. And the last example that I'll show you is where science, fairly deep science, physical sciences, machine learning, data sciences are coming together with domains from agriculture to retail to distribution and trying to solve the important problem of food wastage. Take a look.
We've all had some food in our kitchen go bad at some point. This problem is faced on a large scale at food source, transit, storage, and retail stores. The reason? Food has physical and chemical properties which are sensitive to the environment. Add a complex supply chain and you can see why so much food gets wasted. This is a major global concern. One solution to this is to monitor and predict food quality in real time. By observing physical and chemical degradation patterns unique to a food item, we can tell whether it's good and for how long it'll keep. But it's not practical to have humans do this all the time. So here's where some of the work being done by scientists at TCS Research comes in. They use digital twin technology to replicate these degradation patterns, which then acts as a soft sensor to virtually assess the quality of real food.
Our research involves synchronized monitoring of time series sensory data, variation in chemical composition, and images. And these quantitative variations in food over time are recorded, and AI/ML as well as physics-based models are trained on these data to predict quality, and therefore allowing us judicious use of food and therefore limiting wastage. Also, based on our experience in developing digital twins of fruits and vegetables, we are now working on a generic meta model that can actually apply to a variety of foods based on their similarity of degradation pattern. And eventually, we will cover a variety of foods like cereals, dairy, fish, and meat.
This emerging technology has the potential for solutions across the supply chain. For example, by predicting the shelf life of food items, retailers can sell stock in time, make better pricing decisions, and even repurpose food. Farmers can decide on the ideal harvest time to maximize profit, and you and I can make sure those fruits in that bowl stay fresh longer.
This leads to the reduction of food wastage at each step. It is surprising that something as fundamental to human life as food still depends on centuries-old technology. This can change dramatically using physics-based tools and food chemistry, and we are excited to be doing such work. The food digital twin can impact many industries and contribute to a sustainable future for the entire world.
These are the kinds of examples that we will have to work on, starting from the concerns of today on the bottom right, all the way to the blue sky future on the top left. Let's assume that we have an agenda like this, and each of you might have a personalized claim app for your enterprise or your organization. It's not enough to say, I have a map for the future. You have to be able to execute that map. And last year, I had introduced to you a concept that we had called the Agile Innovation Centers. I'm happy to report that the Agile Innovation Cloud is now real from a TCS perspective. It's operational in nearly 12.5 enterprises across the world. It's centered in TCS's Rapid Labs, TCS's Spaceports, customer locations, and indeed in people's homes, because all of us have been working from home for most of last year. What do? We create an agenda by any means, as you can see on the left. Once the agenda is created, agile teams, interdisciplinary teams, design thinking-led teams, technology-savvy teams come together from TCS, from different organizations, from startups, from universities, solve these problems in extremely rapid 30, 60, 90-day cycles of innovation, and show those tangible outputs in the form of minimum viable products, which can be candidates for the next stage of consideration and scale up in either TCS or in any of the partnering organizations. I would strongly encourage each of you to take a look at this concept and see how it can be value adding to bring those great ideas to outcomes, because that's where innovation really becomes tangible. To conclude, it's been quite a journey for the TCS Innovation Forum. We started this 15 years ago as an ecosystem event in Silicon Valley. Over the years, it has become theme-led. If I look back on the decade of the 2010s, it was all about digital. And as we now look at this decade, the resilient, adaptable, purpose-led enterprise, making things real and tangible, and accelerating the pace of innovation with the wealth of technologies and ideas, and building sustainable futures, is going to be the journey we will be on. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
Ananth, thank you very much. Looks like TCS Research and Innovation has been tackling the challenge of sustainability in many different ways for quite a while. Sounds like you have some outstanding capabilities to bring to bear for your clients. So you've heard from the TCS leaders. We're going to do a poll question now, but Ananth, I'm going to ask you to stay there because we need you again in a few minutes' time. So here's our next poll question, and it is this: how will you be focusing your energies on sustainability initiatives? 4 options here: industry-specific use cases, developing an ecosystem strategy, consulting and IT services to drive business transformation, or breaking down silos across business functions. Of course, you might be doing a load of those, but the closest one answer is the one that we're interested in. So if you can add those to our poll, and we will bring you the results a bit later in the program. Okay, it's now my pleasure to introduce the participants of our Executive Thought Leadership panel. We're going to welcome back Ananth first of all, and then we also have our guest panel speakers. The first of which is Albert Marr, Vice President of Information Technology at Southern California Edison, or SCE. He's responsible for leading SCE's core enterprise IT work, from planning and delivery of technology solutions to maintenance and support. So welcome, Albert. We also have an expert from our COIN partner network, Dr. Mark Fox, a distinguished professor of urban systems engineering and professor of industrial engineering and computer science at the University of Toronto. Mark is a fellow of the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, which I think is the AAAI, and the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineering, which is the IEEE, and the Engineering Institute of Canada. I think you get my point. Mark earned his PhD in computer science from Carnegie Mellon University in 1983. Welcome, Mark. And we're going to begin with a question for you, Mark, about the progress on smart city initiatives. Now, you've been studying the evolution of smart cities for over a decade now. The pandemic made the city operating system not just a back-end process, but the primary face of the city. So the question is, how can the tech backbone of the city become more adaptive to events, with a focus on outcomes, not just the means?
I think we have to understand that cities are perhaps the most complex systems in existence on this world. We often refer to brain surgery or rocket science as being the most complex, but in reality, cities are far vaster in complexity than anything we try to address within the area of science, physics, etc. And the complexity emanates from our inability to simplify what goes on in a city. And that's due to it being composed of thousands of people, thousands of agents, millions of activities operating in loose coordination according to a set of rules and laws imposed by society and subject to a set of other laws not under our control. Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. Moltke's Law, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Billings Law, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And my own law, which is there will always be people who work the system to their own benefit, or for every rule there's someone who is ready and willing to break it. So the complexity, the sheer complexity of a city arises not just from the scale, the number of activities, resources, people, etc., all interacting to achieve a variety of goals and satisfy their own needs all at the same time, but the high level of uncertainty embedded in every action, whether it's people not showing up for work, resources not being available, the weather not cooperating, machines breaking down, or people just making mistakes. When you combine the sheer scale and uncertainty together, it results in a complex system that we are unable to control using existing technologies. So if you have this belief that neural nets or some other technology is sufficient to be able to manage and control what goes on in a city today, you're living a fantasy. We have to take a page from management science. And what management science tells us is that complexity and uncertainty are two opposing forces. Complexity forcing a distribution of tasks, ultimately resulting in a hierarchical distributed organization, and uncertainty pushing in the opposite direction, vertically integrating tasks in a more hierarchical structure. So what does this mean for systems that operate our cities? We have to realize that the operating system for the future of cities has to be distributed by design. It has to be a set of interacting components distributed both geographically and functionally. And at the same time, we have to embed in these distributed components the tenets of ESG. So what technology is needed to achieve this? Before answering this question, I want to address another issue, which is we need to look at the future operating system of cities from an entirely different perspective. And that is, if we believe the city operating system, the system that is going to operate and manage a city, the system that represents the face of the city to our residents, to the organizations that exist within the city, etc., to all of the stakeholders that need to interact with the city, then how do we want it to behave? And behave is the key word here. Because the city is more than just this robot. It has to be able to interact with us in a way that we want to feel comfortable. So what are the core technologies that such an operating system is to be based? First and foremost, and I've alluded to it in what I've said previously, is that we need to construct our future operating system for cities out of a set of intelligent agents that are teleological, that are goal-oriented and constraint-directed, that they have to have access to greater amounts of information to use in decision-making, that they can collaborate and coordinate their decisions and actions, they can introspect and learn from their mistakes, and they can dynamically construct new solutions with full knowledge of its goals and the constraints on achieving them. And underlying and enabling this enhanced level of problem solving is data that is far richer in its capability of representing the knowledge of the city, now referred to as ontologies and implemented using graph databases.
All right. Thank you, Mark. It's great to have our universities and leading thinkers like you evangelize and envision a system that's both sustainable and holistic. I'm going to ask a question to Albert now from SCE, who I hope can share his views from a utilities company perspective. So Albert, at the end customer level, SCE is trying to drive a mindset change by offering additional programs to encourage more use of renewable energy. A green rate is something it offers to its customers. Can you tell us more about that green rate, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our green rate program really provides an alternative for customers who might not have the ability to install or maintain solar panels, to really give them the opportunity to participate in solar and contribute to a cleaner, healthier environment. And so basically our green rate program is where SCE purchases solar energy on behalf of our customers from independently owned solar farms in California. And currently we have roughly around almost 1,400 residential customers and about 1,200 business customers that are on that green rate program. We're looking at other opportunities as well. Next year, we're looking to launch a program called the Community Renewable Program, where business customers are able to enter into an agreement with renewable energy providers to purchase renewable energy on a community scale renewable project. So there are a lot of different exciting things that we're doing in that front, but it all is around how do we have the programs for all of us to participate in, for us to make a difference as a society, as a community, to address our climate change challenges.
Great stuff. Thank you, Albert. Refreshing approach there, I think, to provide some visibility and control back to the customers and let them make choices around their consumption. Ananth, I'd like to turn to you now. You've heard Mark and Albert speak about driving change with customers towards sustainability. I'm quite intrigued by this. What will the role of innovation be in driving this change?
Innovation is about change. It's about doing new things, solving old problems with existing technologies, or solving for new problems with completely new and radical technologies. I think sustainability is a complex issue. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are very, very diverse and very, very specific at the same time. They need solutions, some of which can be done with today's technology and today's processes, but most importantly, I think it needs a mindset to say new things have to be done, new technologies have to be created, and new ways of living for all of us on the planet have to be immediately, and in some cases, perhaps done before where we are today, for us to have a chance at saving the planet. So it is complex, it is large, it requires innovative thinking, innovative execution at scale, and that's the opportunity as well as the challenge that lies ahead of all of us.
So I heard about the importance of sustainability goals and maintaining customer focus and the importance of collaboration. We're going to talk more about that later. Thanks for the moment, Ananth. Let's go back to Mark. Now, I've got a question about how our human behavior furthers sustainability efforts. Human behavior, as we all know, is among the most difficult things to predict, despite the fact that it's essential for better citizen services. Now, I think I'm right in saying the pandemic has created a huge amount of data, apparently exabytes of data from citizen interactions. Do you think it's possible to derive behavioral models from this data? And how can that help to further sustainability decisions?
Good question. It's something I also think about. We're at the confluence of an amazing number of technologies at this time, of which most notable are decision science related technologies such as decision trees and neural networks, etc. But at the same time, the availability of high-powered computation facilities, cloud systems, etc. So we're at a point where, as these technologies come together, that we have the methods, we have the theories, etc., that are very good at recognizing patterns and making recommendations. And given enough data, we can create very good models, primarily stimulus response models, that given an input and associated output, can predict the output with a high level of accuracy. Now, as we know, the world is swimming with data, but the question I always ask is whether the world is swimming in relevant data. So to give you an example, I teach a graduate course on city and data analytics at the University of Toronto. And what I find each year is that when student teams are given a problem to solve using data analytics, the data they need to address the problem is seldom available. And so the point being is, yes, we have data, but no, we don't necessarily have relevant data. And that's why in the whole data analytics world, we say the rule of thumb is that 80% of your effort is spent wrangling data and 20% actually building a model. And so data is the bottleneck. Relevant data is the bottleneck. Nevertheless, for narrowly defined problems, we can develop models that are useful. We have many recommendation systems, recommender systems. We can build systems that suggest city services that a citizen may be interested in based on prior interactions. But sadly, just like recommendation systems as those used by Amazon, Spotify, etc., it is rooted in the past and seldom makes recommendations that allow us to experience something new and different. The issue is whether we can construct a high-fidelity behavioral model. And by fidelity, I mean a model that can accurately predict the behavior of a citizen in most situations. And to do this, we have to go beyond the stimulus response models we have today. We have to go deeper into the understanding of the motivations of citizens. In this situation, Maslow's hierarchy comes to mind. That is, we need to understand the physiological needs, food, water, clothing, sleep, etc., the safety and security needs, the love and belonging needs, esteem needs, etc., that our citizens, or the people who live in a city, have, in order to better understand how to predict their behavior, to make recommendations, things of that nature. As an example, one of my past PhD students, Bart Gajarowicz, who's done work with TCS in the past, developed a model of how homeless people reason and behave. He demonstrated that what looks like irrational decision making is actually rational, but subject to mental and emotional constraints of the individual. So behavioral models, if they are to be truly predictive of the future, need to be more than simple stimulus response models that are based on past behavior. They need to be richer models that take into account a far wider set of inputs than we're normally able to gather. That is normally in that exabyte of data.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Especially considering, I mean, it's a real challenge, isn't it? When you've got a smart city initiative, it really affects different people in different ways. You know, different human personas are influenced by smart city initiatives in different ways, isn't it? And just that idea of using data and analytics to understand, to predict, and influence people's behavior. Let's turn to how our business leaders view related aspects of sustainability in their organizations. Albert, can you tell us what steps SCE is taking within its IT organization to be more focused on sustainability going forward?
Yeah, I think sustainability is really at the core of our vision as a company, and that really permeates and cascades to all our operating units, including IT. And there's just, there's so many different components to what sustainability, in terms of sustainability, in terms of what we focus in on. But I think a couple areas that we're really driving to, one is around transparency and openness. And a good example of that for us is around our commitment to DEI. And we're very transparent with our numbers, both publicly as well as internally. But it's much more than just the numbers. I mean, I think a lot of it's around having the conversations. And over the last number of years, we've really built a really openness with all our team members around the right conversations. And we've had a lot of great conversations around psychological safety, a lot of great conversations around the value of teaming and diversity, and to the challenges that we experience in in all these areas. And so that transparency and openness is definitely a focus for us. Another thing that we think about is around kind of connecting the dots and really taking that vision of sustainability into the daily activities that we do on a day-to-day basis. COVID is a really good example. I know for all corporate IT groups, we've been kind of at the forefront of really enabling remote work and telework, and simple things like providing shipping capability, whereas people would have to before go to the tech bars, and now we just ship our equipment to them. There was definitely a safety component that was kind of on everyone's mind, but it also provides less need to drive to our offices, drive to our service centers, and that also being a real value to our environment. So really helping people see that connecting point. Affordability is another maybe example where we obviously have a lot of different programs for the economically vulnerable in our communities and low income programs around that. But in terms of just efficiency, that's what we do in IT. So every day what we're doing is, whether it's with in order to sustain those programs, or whether it's for all of the communities, how we connect the dots to all that efficiency that we gain, ultimately we can give back to our customers. And so really trying to connect the dots with those. And then I think the last thing I'd just say in terms of what we're trying to do from an organizational perspective is really continue to have just that relentless pursuit of continuous improvement. So we have a strategic pillar that's around operational excellence, and whether that's safety, which is both public safety as well as the safety of our team members, whether that's reliability, affordability, cyber, all those areas, and IT is really involved in the span of that. And it's kind of what we do. And so it's really trying to taking that agile lean mindset, not only to achieving our sustainability goals, but really taking that mindset to how we can grow our sustainability culture.
Okay, that's great to hear. And it's lovely, isn't it, to hear how when you are transparent and when IT is transparent and shares that data all the way along the chain, everyone kind of benefits, and you can just really streamline your business processes and you can understand your customers. That's just brilliant. Ananth, let's get your thoughts on this. There are many ways in which IT is helping business on its sustainability path. Many organizations are accelerating this journey in the coming decade. So how should they be using technology to help them?
In the digital world that we live in, information technology at every level is going to play a more and more important part in an enterprise's sustainability journey. Sometimes the entire industries are going to depend on this, and on the whole, I don't see how this is not going to be center stage in everyone's strategy. Specific examples. So first of all, on the measurement side, many of us are living through analytics, ESG reporting, in many cases statutory things that help an organization to claim carbon credits or any other means of funding the journey and so on. So measurement is a place where it's IT's sweet spot. We have to be able to do this for not just compliance reasons, but for all the right reasons for societal impact and so on. Secondly, it's about the processes that need to run in the journey of many industries towards carbon neutral, towards net zero, and indeed in meeting other sustainability goals, whether it's health, whether it's financial well-being, and so on. So the role of information technology in enabling these inventions to be done, in enabling these inventions to become practical in the context of an enterprise. In the recent pandemic, the health crisis accelerated the role of information technology, not just things like enabling the vaccines to be productized even faster. The certification process across many countries was done at extraordinarily rapid speeds thanks to information technology. And finally, the distribution of the vaccinations across the world in billions of doses, never been done before, was completely enabled by IT. So IT is going to play a central role in every sustainable development goal implementation. Enterprises will need to do it. Industries will have to do this. Society at large will be depending on IT to do a far more active contribution than we have ever imagined before.
Okay, good summary there. Thank you. Lovely to hear that TCS's business conduct is based on ethics and integrity while being enabled by technology. Of course it is. That's why we love you. We're going to move from talking about individual companies and their visions and achievements now to talking about partnerships. Now, these are ecosystems of key players that make a bigger impact, where the result could be greater than the sum of its parts. Ananth, again, can you tell us, please, about TCS's work around enabling partnerships and ecosystems, especially in research around sustainability?
No, so true. This challenge is so large, so complex, planet-wide, so many different dimensions that no one organization, whether it's a company, whether it's a university, whether it's a government or anything else, can do this on their own. So the ecosystem approach that TCS calls Co-Innovation Network, COIN, is playing an extraordinarily important role in making this feasible, not just from a TCS perspective, but from a global perspective. I'll just give you 2 or 3 examples. One is with Mark and his team at the University of Toronto. We are part of that consortium that Mark is establishing, the Urban Data Repository, and it's going to give us a handle into sustainability from a city's perspective. And given that half the world is going to be living in cities at any point in time, it's going to be a fantastic way of putting that measurement that I spoke about into play and saying, all right, this is where we are and this is where we need to go. So that's one example. The second one is on the health front. So if we look at the way in which the success that TCS's digital twin technology had in the city of Pune during the pandemic, in allowing the city officials to plan for different strategies for handling the impact of the pandemic, lockdowns and so on. This is being taken up by a consortium of universities in the UK to see whether city digital twins can now learn from this experience of a pandemic, but use it for other purposes, which might be very useful and contextual in the journey towards sustainability in an urban context as well. There's so many more examples. The original Shine Seniors project that Mark was associated with in the Singapore ecosystem with the Singapore Management University, TCS Research and Innovation, and several partners in Singapore was also something which is getting transplanted now to the Ireland ecosystem. And again, the universities are playing a role, the voluntary agencies are playing a role. So doing this kind of cutting edge research in diverse areas is something that we will see more and more of. TCS Coin is investing in partnerships in India, in Europe, the UK, the United States, many other parts of the world, working with leading edge universities to see where is it that we can bring in that unique blend of industry strength research that TCS has, and of course the thought leadership and the unique fundamental research capabilities that universities have. It's an unbeatable combination. We need stuff like this to succeed in something as difficult as sustainability.
Yeah, the Coin Network continues to amaze me. It's a real example of great collaboration. Thank you, Ananth. Let's find out more about specific programs taken up by corporations. So, Albert, I've heard of Pathway 2045. Now, this is very intriguing. Could you explain for our audience, please, what the Pathway 2045 program is and how SCE is contributing to California's carbon neutrality goal through the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. Climate change is one of the top issues of our generation. And over the last few years at SCE, we've published a number of white papers that really lays out a blueprint for carbon neutrality by the year 2045. And it's all part of California's long-term decarbonization goals. And so when we looked at the research, we looked at a number of alternatives, and we found that clean power and electrification is our most affordable path, as well as the most feasible path for us to get there. And so just to talk about a few of the highlights there about what the program is advocating for from an objectives perspective, is the first thing is around decarbonizing electricity, which basically means powering 100% of our retail sales through carbon-free electricity. Transportation electrification is another key piece of the blueprint. And our objective there is to have 75% of our light-duty vehicles to be EVs by that year. Building electrification also is another really critical component as well. And there our goal is to have 70% of all space and water heaters to be electrified by that time. And of course, we're not going to be able to electrify everything. So for those things that we can electrify, to be able to leverage low-carbon fuels like biomethane and hydrogen to be able to give the power that's needed from that perspective. And then finally, to really leverage carbon sinks to address kind of that remaining carbon footprint. So those are kind of in a nutshell kind of our key goals as we think about our 2045 Pathways program. But SCE is doing a bunch of things as well. Our company is looking to provide that thought leadership as one key component. Most recently we provided a white paper on the topic of Mind the Gap, which basically is saying that we made some good progress in the areas of GHG reduction, but we really need to accelerate the rate of reduction by 4 times the rate that's happening right now to be able to hit California's goals. And a lot of what needs to happen that's laid out in that paper is around both at the state level, but also at the federal level in terms of policy changes, additional funding and incentives to help us to get there. But beyond that thought leadership, we're also playing a really active and key role from a transportation electrification perspective. This summer, July this year, we launched our Charge Ready program, which is about getting 38,000 EV ports throughout our service territory in the next few years. And that's really, we have a lot of interest from a lot of different groups across the board. So it's a really exciting program that we're excited to continue to launch and deploy that functionality. We also are putting in other things like energy storage, so both utility owned as well as third party, as we continue to grow our renewable resources from a wind perspective, from a solar perspective. And as an IT organization, one of the key things that our group is doing is working on our grid modernization program, which is also a key capability that we need as we march towards that 2045 objectives.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Not just in recognizing sustainability goals as being important, but also drawing up programs to achieve measurable goals within a specific time period, which I think the world could do with more of, don't you? Certainly the direction that I think we should all be heading. Mark, we talk about smart cities as if each exist in a vacuum. But of course, cities are ecosystems of many different players. Can you tell us what you think some of the areas that private enterprises can contribute towards sustainable cities?
The interesting thing about cities is they encompass everything and anything. Anything you can imagine: parks and recreation, social services, transportation, water and sanitation. To be able to enumerate the possible areas of contribution means to basically enumerate everything you can imagine. So let me answer it at a different level. If you buy into my perspective that the urban operating system of the future is going to be composed of intelligent agents, and that these intelligent agents conform to the behavioral requirements that I discussed previously, then private enterprises will play an increasingly important role as the suppliers of agents with different specialties. They could provide agents in the area of transportation, scheduling buses, dynamic reallocation of buses when subways or metros break down, et cetera, et cetera. They could provide agents in the area of electricity and smart grids, such as the balancing of electrical load in an environment where anyone can be both a producer and consumer of electricity. So, for example, people have talked about our electric cars in the future becoming a storage battery for the grid. And every home becomes a place where electricity can be stored. And one has to then focus on how do we balance supply and demand, where every home, every car is part of the grid. And this goes on and on and on. You can pick any service area in a city, and as we create an agent-based urban operating system, private enterprise can begin to provide their own agents to perform certain tasks, but only as long as they conform to the behavioral requirements I talked about earlier and other requirements so that they fit in, cooperate, and coordinate with the other agents. So the key thing is the intelligent agent model allows for an ever-expanding, in essence, outsourcing of agents to private enterprise.
Yeah, thanks. That really enforces the idea that the private sector does play a critical role in enabling and sustaining the idea of a true circular economy. So today we've heard from the eminent executive panelist speakers here on the importance of sustainability goals, having specific programs to achieve them, and how infrastructure, standards, and data are contributing to forming smart cities that improve the quality of life for their citizens. I think we've got time for one more round of questions. So I'd like to talk about resilience and governance in the context of sustainable communities and cities. So we'll go to Mark first. Mark, more than half of the world's population live in cities. That's going to increase in the coming years. Designing smart cities isn't just about a city's survival. I think we could be talking about humanity's survival as well. I don't know whether I'm overstating that, but how can city councils and governments work on this collaboratively and learn from each other? How can they create standards and best practices for a better future?
Oh, this is a tough question because it takes us out of the realm of technology into the world of politics. I'm situated in Toronto. Over the last couple of years, the city started what's referred to as the Quayside project, which is to create a smart city or city of the future within the city of Toronto. They engaged Google's Sidewalk Labs to head that project. And sadly, that project came to an end. Google walked away. And I believe part of the reason that they walked away is that special interest groups raised their head and screamed at the top of their lungs about risks such as privacy, etc., which led to, I believe, partly to the project's termination, as opposed to the special interest groups participating in a reasoned approach to addressing citizen concerns, privacy concerns, security concerns, things of that nature. And what people fail to realize is that there is a need for cities to experiment. Okay? And when you experiment, you're going to make mistakes. And if we approach these new technologies, these new ways of thinking, these new ways of governing from an experiment perspective, then we have to give ourselves the ability to fail. We have to give ourselves the ability to get it wrong, while at the same time giving us the opportunity to do it right. And that's what's very sad about the loss of the Sidewalk Labs Quayside project in Toronto, is the loss of that ability to experiment, or the ignoring of the ability to experiment. I think that's key for any city going forward, is that willingness to experiment, the willingness to get it wrong, and the opportunity to get it right. Now, talking about governments, etc., city councils working collaboratively, learning from each other, there are meetings like this. There are many conferences out there on smart cities where people from these organizations, from these municipalities, etc., do go to learn from each other. But there is a very important role of the standards development organizations out there that should not be underestimated. That organizations like the International Standards Organization, the International Electrotechnical Committee, et cetera, W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, all of them are creating technical standards and guidance documents that are very much relevant to what we're discussing today. And if there's anything that I have seen that would make the development of standards more relevant to city councils in government, it is the active participation of these city councils and governments in the standards development area. That is to say, there are large numbers of people who are participating in standards development, but they don't necessarily directly represent the cities themselves. And so to see the city of Toronto, to see the city of Mumbai, to see the city of Chicago participating in these standard meetings will result in standards, will result in collaborations that will better all cities going forward.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate your insights there. Let's consider an example now of a region like California, which is fraught with natural disasters like wildfires. It's also prone to earthquakes. How can a region like that mitigate the impacts on the day-to-day lives of its citizens? Albert, how is SCE reimagining the grids, considering the need to build in higher resilience in the context of distributed energy resources and of extreme weather conditions like severe heat and drought?
Yeah, last year we kind of launched our Reimagine the Grid analysis and program as a key part of our 2045 pathway strategy. And you can imagine in a world where we have greater electrification, the grid is becoming even more critical, will become more critical, and we will need to continue to make investments to build that resiliency and to build those new capabilities. You mentioned wildfire, and we have a whole wildfire mitigation plan. And one of the key actions of that is around our grid hardening program, which is, one component of that is around building and installing more covered conductor, which is basically putting like a sleeve or a sheath over our electric wire in high fire risk areas. And we've already seen a lot of benefit from that, and we're going to continue to install, many more miles of that in the near term. But you also mentioned sort of the DERs and the distributed energy resources. That offers a great opportunity for us as a society. However, there's a lot of things that we need to do in that space. One of the things that is to recognize that over the last 120 years at SCE, we've had one-way power delivery, from our generation sources, to transmission, to distribution, to our customers. And with more DERs, that's changing. So we're going to need to have more and more two-way power flow. And with that, requires us to enable more capabilities to that. So as we build out that capability, we need to have kind of the underlying infrastructure platforms to be able to meet our customer needs and to really meet our sustainable energy goals. So as our grid modernization program is really core and really foundational to meeting that transformation. And very specifically, what we're doing is we're building out new control systems to integrate with microgrids and DERs. We're building out, an advanced field area network that will allow for that low latency that's required for the grid of the future. And then we're going to have a bunch of virtualized technologies in our substations, a lot more than we have currently. And all that, of course, we're going to need to really strengthen our cyber security controls. So that really is a key part of the program as well. And then in addition to that, having new kind of mobile field technologies for our crews to have better situational awareness. So those are all key things from an infrastructure platform perspective that we're building, and that also will help and will also enable us to have more intelligent end devices. And with all those devices and all the sensors that we're going to have, that's obviously going to create even more data than we have today. And so part of that is building out the functionality and the capabilities to really leverage that data and really gain that insight to have better decision making going forward. So it's a really exciting program that we're embarking on, and it's an exciting journey that we're going to be continuing to grow in.
Excellent. Good to know that you've got some comprehensive measures that you're taking. Ananth, I know that there is an electricity usage solution that's built by TCS. Could you elaborate on that and maybe the other solutions that are accelerating sustainability initiatives for your customers, please?
So yeah, I think you're talking about TCS Clever Energy, and it's got an interesting history in itself, and it was something which came out of TCS research, and it's become quite a successful product. But before I get into that Clever Energy solution, I'd just like to share a nugget that I just learned fairly recently. We did an inventory of interesting products and solutions that TCS's research and innovation and the larger TCS business have come up with to tackle different aspects of the sustainability challenge. I think we've crossed 170 solutions and products and platforms that TCS has out there to do this. It's a very large number, no doubt, but all of these are doing important things in their different contexts. I mean, the Intelligent Urban Exchange, for example, is tackling important problems relating to data in an urban context and connecting the dots between silos of information that might exist and hamper a journey towards sustainability of a city. Now, coming back to Clever Energy, it's got an interesting history. The opportunity was to try and optimize the energy consumption in TCS campuses about 6 or 7 years ago. The technology had been invented in research, and we knew how to manage down the energy consumption by measuring it and then optimizing it and then proving the cost savings and so on and so forth. It got industrialized because our then CFO, Rajesh, who's now our CEO, said that if you can do this not just for one campus somewhere, but can you do it for all the TCS campuses worldwide? And we said, sure, we can. And so the TCS incubation team got together with our engineering business unit, and the Clever Energy solution was born. And it started managing TCS's energy footprint. It not just managed the costs down for TCS, but also did the planet a whole lot of good, because now we could plan on how much of energy should we get from conventional energy, from solar energy and alternate energies and so on. When we started talking about this to our customers and other stakeholders, they said, why don't you make this work for us? So that's how it became a TCS product. And now it's doing extremely well in different parts of the world. It started off as a TCS internal research project, graduated to an incubated project, took over by the business into a full-fledged product, and now it's out there doing a lot of good to the market. I could tell you 170 stories like this, but back to you on that one.
Ananth, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Great to understand how TCS has developed and delivered these solutions that have accelerated sustainability across many interrelated industries. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. If you have more questions, then please do post them into the chat window. Someone from TCS will get back to you. Thanks to our panelists too. I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to hear and discuss your insights and points of view. I'm sure you'll agree it was a thought-provoking discussion. It provided insights about how people, the planet, and prosperity are coalescing into a common narrative on sustainability. Purpose-led behavior will be the harbinger of how organizations can build sustainable futures as they look to accelerate innovation for a better tomorrow. And we hope you've gained new perspectives on how to shape your transformation strategy to enhance sustainability for your enterprise. Okay, well, that is the end of our executive panel discussion. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. Plenty more still to come, though. Earlier, we asked you a couple of poll questions. Thank you if you took part. Time to take a look at the results now. Here's a reminder of the first question. As you focus more on your sustainability strategy, what do you perceive as the biggest challenge? Overwhelmingly, developing a holistic sustainability strategy across business units and ecosystems was the most popular answer. Those ecosystems, you're going to love them, haven't you? Thank you for your votes on that. Now let's look at the second question, which was with respect to your sustainability initiatives, where will you be focusing your energies? Nearly half of you said developing an ecosystem strategy. Interesting to note that the silos are still there, aren't they? Nearly a quarter are still trying to break down those silos. Thanks again for taking part in our live polls today. We hope you found them informative. Coming up next, we have our breakout sessions, and we'd love you to attend one of them. In a moment, I'm going to explain to you how to get to those breakout sessions. First, let's take a look at what's being offered. Option 1, driving purpose-centric customer experiences powered by ecosystems. As consumer purchasing accelerates towards more digital touchpoints, sustainability continues to shape customer decision-making. In this session, you can explore how industries like retail, CPG, travel, transportation, hospitality, technology, and services are incubating 360-degree ecosystems for collaborative innovation to cater to environmental, social, and governance needs like never before. Or you might choose banks and financial institutions empowering a sustainable future. Creating a sustainable future will require banks and financial institutions to play a pivotal role. This session will delve into calibrated actions by these institutions through different lenses by galvanizing the larger ecosystem play that will be essential to empower the transition to a sustainable global economy. Option 3, sustainability and decarbonization, opportunities, challenges, and future for utilities and manufacturers. Sustainability and decarbonization are two major drivers for manufacturing and utilities organizations to reimagine their business models. This session will provide insights about the opportunities and challenges that the manufacturing and utilities sector are facing, especially in the context of sustainability and decarbonization, and discuss how innovation and advanced technologies can accelerate this journey. Your final choice is the rise of sustainable health and wellness ecosystem. The health and wellness ecosystem is evolving across multiple industries, including life sciences, healthcare, public services, energy, retail, and financial services. In this session, you can listen to how business and technology leaders are reimagining the future of this emergent ecosystem and get insights on human collaboration and the significance of digital innovation as a key enabler for the health and wellness ecosystem. Those breakouts start straight after I've finished speaking. On your home screen, you should see a breakout session widget between the Content Hub and the Book a Meeting widget. So just click that and then click your choice of session. Before you go, I just wanted to thank our special guests once again, Ananth and Suri. Hopefully this TCS Innovation Forum in North America has unlocked some fascinating ideas and approaches that can help you to embark on your sustainability journey to accelerate innovation for a better tomorrow. Also, massive thanks to our panelists, Albert Ma and Mark Fox, for their contributions, as well as all of those behind the scenes who've helped to keep things running so smoothly. I mean, It looks as if it's gone smoothly to me. I might be talking to myself, and Jeff could be talking to you right now. I wouldn't know. But if you want to watch this event again in full or just any part of it, an on-demand version will be available soon with the same link that you used to join today. And before you leave, we would absolutely love you to complete the survey in the widget section of the console. Your feedback helps us to make these sessions better and better. So once again, thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed taking part in the 2021 TCS Innovation Forum in North America, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.